Orange dress on the show was such a, hit
Yeah.
that I feel after COVID, we really need bright colors, and I like everybody wearing bright colors. I like to look at them myself, so I figured I don't have that many in my closet, so I've been hunting for them as the shows go on.
Tina Louise was one of the most well-known television personalities in 1967. Then she was gone. What transpired was a mystery to her co-stars on Gilligan's Island. Although she was labeled as difficult by producers, the reality was otherwise. Since she was 6 years old, she had been avoiding something that occurred during visiting days at a boarding school, something about vacant seats and quiet Sundays. She is speaking out at the age of 90, and the reason behind her departure will alter your perception of all celebrities. It was on February 11th, 1934, that Tina Louise was born in the city of New York. Tina Blacker was her birth name. In Brooklyn, her father, Joseph, ran a confectionery. At the age of 18, her mother, Sylvia Horn, was already employed as a fashion model. Tina lived between two very different worlds from the start. One, like the candy store, was consistent and delicious. The other, the fashion industry, was brash, flamboyant, and ablaze with lights. Her entire life would be shaped by that disparity. However, things weren't stable for very long. Tina's parents separated when she was just 4 years old. It was the late 1930s when divorce was highly stigmatized. Tina's life became chaotic after that. She went from living with one relative to another. She was occasionally sent to boarding schools. Her dad continued to run the confectionery store, and her mother pursued modeling positions. Tina never felt comfortable in one location for very long. Love became something she saw other children get, and home became a movable objective. Her mother had multiple marriages. Tina was shifted once more with every new spouse, who brought with him a new stepfather. She occasionally had to abruptly depart a house. At one point, she claimed to feel like luggage, never really seen, but carried around. She was not comforted by these continual shifts. Rather, they widened the void already created by her mother's unpredictable behavior and her father's absence. Nobody inquired about her desires. Nobody lingered long enough to learn. She was transferred to the upstate New York boarding school, Ardsley School for Girls, when she was 6 years old. It was a strict school. Personal belongings were prohibited. There were rules everywhere. Even the little things that gave her a sense of identity were gone. Gone are the toys, photos, and mementos. If there was affection, it was scarce. Tina felt even more alone in the company of other girls. She missed being comforted, loved, and told that she mattered. Visitation days were Sundays. At that point, the other girls arrived. They brought updates from home, snacks, and hugs. However, most Sundays were spent waiting. She seldom ever saw her parents. Wait, she watched as the room filled with happiness before evaporating and abandoning her, again and again. After the final guest departed, the quietness grew accustomed to it. She never got over that pain. Tina Louise's entire life changed after a minor incident occurred during her high school years. Her teacher requested her complete name when she was seated in the acting class. Tina Blacker, she answered. Did she have a middle name, the teacher inquired. She didn't. Thus, the instructor immediately recommended Louise, as simple as that. There was no plan. The choice wasn't significant. However, Tina instantly adored the name. It felt like her lovely. She began using it everywhere after that day, not just at school. Louise evolved to become more than just a middle name. She adopted it as her stage name. It eventually took Blacker's place entirely. And the amusing part, neither a PR team nor an agent sent it. It started as a lighthearted incident in a classroom. The beginning of Tina Louise's career was not in front of a camera or on a stage. She was just 2 years old when it started. She starred in a commercial for the candy store her father owned. She experienced the spotlight for the first time then. Tina was surrounded by that environment growing up because her mother had also been a model. She observed, studied, and imitated those actions. She began working as a model while still a teenager. At the time, some of the pictures, which were pin-up style and showcased her attractiveness and self-assurance, were regarded as pretty provocative. Even in the 1950s, such images had the potential to cause controversy. Tina, however, didn't back down. She made a statement with her appearance and presence. Yes, she made money from those modeling jobs, but more significantly, they taught her how to light a shot and strike a posture, and how to establish a camera connection. She would use all of these abilities throughout her acting career. Tina, however, wasn't just another attractive person seeking notoriety. She aspired to be exceptionally skilled at acting. That's why she followed the serious actors. She first received instruction from Sanford Meisner at the local playhouse. Meisner trained performers to react spontaneously and truthfully. Fake feelings were not what he wanted. Truth was what he sought. Tina was deeply affected by that. Then she went one step beyond. She trained with Lee Strasberg, the creator of method acting at the Actors Studio. Strasberg took a different approach. He urged the performers to go deeply into their own emotions and recollections. It was intense. It was uncooked. However, it was successful. Legends like James Dean and Marlon Brando were among his pupils. Tina aspired to be perceived as equally talented as she was gorgeous. Tina got her first significant role in the musical Lil Abner in 1956 when she was still in her teens. With a strong run of 693 performances after the show's November 15th opening, she gained genuine recognition. She portrayed Appassionata von Climax, a colorful character. It was a significant break, and another actress, who was also making her Broadway debut, shared her dressing room. Tina, however, was no stranger to the stage. She had previously made an appearance in the Bette Davis Musical Revue Two's Company in 1952. She appeared in John Murray Anderson's Almanac as well. Will Rock Hunter be spoiled by success? Nevertheless, it was Lil Abner who attracted the attention of Hollywood. Her career took a new turn as a result of the positive evaluations, which also led to film opportunities. Tina made her Hollywood debut 2 years later in 1958, and it was a huge hit. In Anthony Mann's God's Little Acre, she portrayed Griselda. It was more than a movie. At the Venice Film Festival, it was a highlight. She won the Golden Globe for New Star of the Year for the role. It was difficult to get that type of praise, particularly for a debut. Her star power was recognized by Columbia Pictures. They set up Playboy picture shoots in May 1958 and April 1959 to improve her image. Tina also had appearances in the 1958 Fredericks of Hollywood catalog, Adam, Sir, Modern Man, and a number of pin-up periodicals. She managed to reconcile modeling and serious cinema parts, unlike many actresses of the day. She was able to win over both the public and her detractors thanks to it. Tina never abandoned Broadway, despite her success in Hollywood. She made a comeback to the stage in 1964 with Fade Out, Fade In opposite Carol Burnett. With 271 performances, it debuted on May 26 at the Mark Heilinger Theater and ran until April 17, 1965. In a musical composed by Betty Comden and Adolph Green, and with music by Jewel Stein, Tina portrayed Gloria Curie. Jack Cassidy was nominated for a Tony Award for his portrayal of Byron Prong. However, Tina took a daring choice halfway through the run. In order to play Ginger Grant on Gilligan's Island, she departed the show. Many serious actors at the time shunned television because they believed it was beneath them. Tina, however, saw the possibilities. After its 1964 debut, the program became a cultural icon. Her instincts were sharp, as evidenced by that maneuver. Nor did she confine herself to a single type of role. She stepped straight into darker material after God's Little Acre, such as Richard Widmer's 1959 noir picture The Trap. She starred in 2 westerns that same year, Day of the Outlaw, starring Robert Ryan, and The Hangman, starring Robert Taylor, which was directed by Michael Curtis. Then a surprise arrived. She traveled to Italy. That is not what most American actresses do. However, Tina co-starred with Silva Cosina and Rossano Brazzi in the 1960 historical drama The Siege of Syracuse, which was about the Roman siege during the Second Punic War. She performed in The Siege of Syracuse in 3 different parts, and as Sappho in The Warrior Empress. She had the option to work on Operation Petticoat or the movie adaptation of Lil Abner, but she chose to work in Europe instead. She wanted more than simply notoriety. Tina Louise wasn't just a budding actress when she was chosen to play Ginger Grant on Gilligan's Island in 1964. She had previously gained attention on Broadway and won a Golden Globe for God's Little Acre in 1958. She therefore anticipated a unique experience as she portrayed the glitzy movie star marooned on a remote island. It was, too, not in the manner she had hoped. The show itself wasn't a big success at first. During its initial run, which lasted only 3 seasons from 1964 to 1967, it wasn't a ratings monster. However, everything changed when it went into syndication. The program became popular. After school, kids watched it. At supper, families watched it. It was broadcast in over 30 countries. Decades later, Tina Louise's face appeared on comic books, lunchboxes, and even clothing. Ginger Grant was no longer merely a fictional figure. Tina had become the face of the Hollywood bombshell that she had become. However, there was a cost to the fame. Tina had been promised a multifaceted, intelligent character that combined the charm of Marilyn Monroe with the humor of Lucille Ball. That is what persuaded her to sign on to a ridiculous island comedy after having a successful Broadway run. However, the screenplay was altered when she got to the set. Ginger was reduced from a sophisticated woman to a joke, a conceited, one-dimensional beauty whose role was to spit out shallow lines and swish her hips. Tina was enraged. She told the CBS bosses she didn't sign up for this and called the new Ginger version absurd. It was more than simply pride. Tina thought there was a pattern in Hollywood. Consider putting a stunning woman in a box. Make her stupid. Make her sexy. Keep her from being human. She thought Ginger had been rewritten in this way, and that sensation persisted. Her annoyance escalated into something more significant as the show continued. She was always in odds with producers. She desired more time spent in front of the TV. Better lines were what she desired. She desired the Ginger she had been promised. The producers, however, had different plans. She even declined to perform in several sequences. She once locked herself in her dressing room and refused to go until the show's creator, Sherwood Schwartz, personally calmed her down. She used to call scenes ridiculous and just refused to do them, he claimed. She distanced herself from more than simply the producers and writers. There were rumors that she kept to herself in between takes and seldom ever spoke to her co-stars off camera. But when it mattered, Tina maintained her professionalism. She produced. Despite her distaste for the show's trajectory, her portrayal of Ginger made it unforgettable. She added drama behind the scenes, but it was never evident when the cameras were rolling. It persisted even after Gilligan's Island was canceled. In terms of syndication, it took off. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, there were cartoon spin-offs, reunion specials, and made-for-TV films. Tina Louise, however, had no desire to interact with them. The only cast member that declined to return was her. In the reunion films, the filmmakers were forced to substitute actress Judith Baldwin for her. That was the depth of her bitterness. She believed her chances at serious, dramatic work had been ruined by the show's severe typecasting. She still thought it had hurt her career years later. Even Sherwood Schwartz acknowledged that Tina felt ensnared by the history of the show. He claimed she felt trapped in a stereotype and was upset with the show. She no longer desired to be Ginger Grant, not in real life, not on television, and not in interviews. She stayed away from reunions. She avoided the sentimentality. Additionally, her appearance on the infrequent talk show or special was brief. Gilligan's Island was not a pleasant recollection for her. It served as a warning. Tina Louise, the last person left of the original cast after Dawn Wells' death in 2020, was the last connection to a show that had both made her famous and irritated her. A complicated role had originally been promised to her. Rather, she turned into a symbol, and the island followed her everywhere, regardless of how far she fled Ginger Grant. Tina Louise found herself stranded after Gilligan's Island concluded in 1967. She received early recognition for her serious performances, such as in God's Little Acre, 1958, while training at the Actors Studio, FERC. But now none of that mattered. She was Ginger Grant to Hollywood. On a tropical island, the glitzy movie star became stuck. She was both famous and confined by the job. She couldn't be seen as anything else by casting agents. Her talent didn't matter to them. All they saw were the high heels, the red lipstick, and the wig. It really irritated her. A Marilyn Monroe clone was the original concept for Ginger. However, the character changed along with the show. Tina embraced the depth that writers offered her. Nevertheless, nobody acknowledged her. She was passed over by producers. For the 3 reunion films, she declined to come back. Particularly regarding conflicts with co-star Bob Denver, rumors circulated. In later spin-offs and specials, Ginger was portrayed by 5 additional actresses. Her career was likewise put on hold by the part that made her famous. That was the harsh price of becoming a TV personality in the 1960s. Tina persisted, nevertheless. She battled to establish her superiority over Ginger. She co-starred with Dean Martin in the spy parody The Wrecking Crew in 1968. It also featured Sharon Tate. It was among her final motion pictures. Next came Tina's role as a woman stuck in suburban dullness in The Happy Ending, 1969. The piece was about sad housewives and was quite serious. Not a joke. She made an appearance in The Stepford Wives in 1975. The movie gained notoriety. Critics took notice of her unsettling portrayal as one of the robotic, obedient wives. For her, it was a potent moment. Tina continued to be active into the 1980s and 1990s. She participated in O.C. by Robert Altman, in Stig's 1987, and starred in Johnny Swede starring a youthful Brad Pitt, 1992. Although they weren't hits, they demonstrated her bravery. When many had written her off, she chose daring, independent enterprises. She went back to watching TV too. She started working for Dallas in 1978 as Julie Gray, the secretary who had a covert liaison with J.R. Ewing. Although her role didn't have a happy ending, it demonstrated Tina's ability to deal with drama. She was more than just a sitcom star. She also took on challenging television films. She portrayed a vicious prison matron in the 1976 film Nightmare in Batham County. She entered the realm of horror, and look what's happened to Rosemary's Baby. She had appearances as a guest star on Ironside, It Takes a Thief, and Bonanza. She even made an appearance on Married with Children in 1990, where her image was ridiculed. Tina was more than simply a Hollywood survivor. She was changing. There were highs and lows in her personal life. She wed Les Crane in 1966. He was a fearless TV and radio host who gained notoriety for his daring interviews. They were a well-known pair. They had a daughter, Caprice, in 1970. They separated within a year. They portrayed a fake married pair on Love American Style, a strange mashup of TV and real life, in 1969. Tina subsequently acknowledged that, particularly as a single parent, balancing motherhood and a job was challenging. She never gave up. Growing up, Caprice Crane became an MTV producer and novelist. Stupid and Contagious, her debut book, was published in 2006. She gave her mother the dedication. That signal is quite clear. Despite her difficulties in love, Tina provided her daughter with the support she had never had. Les Crane remarried in 1978. This time to film producer Craig S. Baumgarten, years after their divorce. His marriage ended in 1991. Although he worked on films like Hook and Shattered, it was yet another traumatic chapter. However, Tina continued to concentrate on her daughter, her job, and ultimately her silent attempts to give back. In interviews, she talked candidly about her early years, although she seldom ever discussed her suffering. She claimed that there was no warmth or affection. She felt unwanted as a child. Her life was molded by her absence. She joined Learning Leaders, a volunteer organization that reads to disadvantaged children in New York, after saying, "Nobody ever read to me." She spent 30 years doing it. She read to kids who needed what she never had once a week. Tina Louise quietly left the limelight after decades in Hollywood. However, rather than waning, she focused her energies on giving back, something that most celebrities never even think about. She has been volunteering as a reading tutor with Learning Leaders in New York City for more than 30 years, starting in the early 1990s. Tina continued to appear week after week, year after year, and this wasn't just a fleeting charity appearance or a photo opportunity. Aiding in the literacy development of kids from underprivileged neighborhoods. She worked with hundreds of pupils, imparting confidence, something she lacked as a child, in addition to teaching them words on paper. Her commitment was not overlooked. She received constant accolades from the local and nonprofit media. She advocated for more robust literacy initiatives in the city, participated in public campaigns, and raised money using her name. She had experienced emotional neglect as a child. She once claimed to understand what it was like to grow up without parental guidance. She therefore turned into that person who helped others. Another outlet was writing. She published Sunday, a memoir, a very intimate book in 2010. It was honest and unvarnished. She talked candidly about the suffering of growing up without support or affection. The book caused a stir. That degree of vulnerability from someone they just knew as Ginger from Gilligan's Island was unexpected. Tina didn't stop there either. With a good standard of living, continuing to be involved, active, and, above all, close to her family, she has a particularly strong relationship with her daughter, Caprice. Tina enjoys spending time with her grandchildren and finds happiness in these peaceful family moments. They converse frequently. The woman depicted in the 2023 and 2024 interviews puts her health and love above all else. A welcome change from the outdated cliches of Hollywood. Tina considers the lessons she has learnt as she looks back on her life. She is open about the challenges she has had in her personal and professional life, but what really inspires me is the way she approaches life. Tina stresses the value of living in the now and being present. Even the tiniest things like taking a stroll, drawing, or having dinner with loved ones bring her joy. She asserts that these moments, far more important than any celebrity or recognition, are what really count. In her essays and interviews from 2022 to 2024, she conveys a message of thankfulness and fortitude, reminding us all that happiness frequently comes from the small, ordinary things. Beyond her acting career, Tina has left a lasting legacy. She urges others to follow their hobbies without being constrained by industry norms or public opinion, having experienced the difficulties of typecasting, particularly in her memorable portrayal as Ginger Grant on Gilligan's Island. Her message of self-empowerment is reflected in her career, which is full of both acclaimed roles and the struggle to escape them. Over the past few years, she has encouraged aspiring creatives to concentrate on their own development in speeches and interviews, and to stay loyal to oneself instead of looking to other people for approval.